When I first started Sounds True, and Ken's right, it was because I wanted to continue the education that I felt was interrupted at college, that didn't feel complete to me. And it was because there's a certain amount of questioning and study that I wanted to do that couldn't happen in an academic environment. And I thought, well, if I can just get the people I really want to learn from one-on-one in a studio, then finally I can get out of them what I really want to learn. And then the question when we were setting up our organization was, well, how do you create an organization that reflects the values that are on the programs that we're distributing? We want to be congruent. We want our processes to reflect the products we're putting out in the world. How do we do this? And at the time, there was no integral leadership seminar to go to. And so we were like, well, let's just make it up. And we started with really simple ideas like conscience. And one of them was, well, what if I treated the people I worked with the way I wanted to be treated? This is so simple, it's almost embarrassing to admit. It's not puritanical, but it is embarrassing nonetheless. And because I had never really had a job, I wasn't really all that employable. I would go into jobs and I had my own filing systems, or I wanted to meditate on my break, and I wanted to work at home. I mean, I just really couldn't fit into a normal work environment. So I thought, well, I'm going to treat my employees like the kind of unusual person I am. And if they want to take their shoes off at work, I mean, I don't really care, as long as, we have workman's comp or whatever. If they step on something, that's all right. And if they want to go home and do their work outside on their porch, as long as they're not answering the phones and are part of a regular customer service shift, what do I care? I would like to go home too. And in fact, I'm going to go home and do my work at home. Anyway, on and on and on. So that was really the principle of how we built our company culture in the beginning, was simply, I'm going to treat the people who work for me like the kind of freak that I am, and let them be individualist. And interestingly, an organization called the Contemplative Mind in Society recently did a research project and used Sounds True as a guinea pig. And I was very curious what they were going to find out. And of course I said, well, everybody here is not a meditator. So I don't know if in your research you're going to say, is this really a contemplative organization? I don't really know if we're a contemplative organization. There's probably only, a third to a fourth of our staff would identify as having a contemplative practice. And they were like, well, we don't really have very many companies we can study, so can we come study your company? And I was like, yeah, it's fine with me. I don't care. And what they said, interestingly, was not, this is a group of people who are, walking around like monks in the hallway, but this is a company where people feel free to be themselves. And that's one of the fruits of a contemplative organization, and perhaps one that the most people can relate to. That there's a quality of openness where everybody feels that it's okay to be who they are. And then the question I would ask back to the group, because I think it is an interesting question, is can you think of public companies that you would call integral organizations? I would be curious if are there examples that exist out there.
In answering or trying to answer that, it raises the issue that I struggle with, in which these concepts begin to look as though they're on a scale. They're a line rather than a type. They're described almost as a type. You either are enlightened or you're not. You either are an integral company or you're not. But it looks like to me that you approximate something.
Oh, yeah.
You can't actually say that company is, but you can say it's on the way.
Yeah, I think that's a very important point. And then the question would be, are there any public companies that are even aspiring to be? Let's just start there.
Yeah. Well, that was what we talked about too in terms of the little bit of good news. If you look at the center of gravity of corporations over the past 30 years, has been one major change, and really only one major change. And that is the center of gravity. The dominant mode of discourse that we talked about went from orange to green. And that happened over a 30 or 40 year period. So that it's modest in some ways, but it's actually quite significant. If you think of the corporation of 1950s, the corporation of 1990, that's the main difference you can point to. Now it's agentic orange to agentic green. You have to understand there is agentic green, that there's agentic or communal on all of these. It doesn't just go back and forth like spiral dynamics maintains. And that's a significant change. So it's like saying, are there corporations that are significantly yellow? In other words, that their center of gravity is more or less yellow, the way most corporations today are orange or green. And that's just not very many. But over the next 10, 15 years, we expect to see increasingly the dominant modes of discourse are going to shift into yellow. And that's what's so interesting about it. So what we're kind of doing, this grand experiment, is finding ways to do this first. Because first of all, it's healthy. That's where the leading edge of evolution is. That's where you can get the most out of people. And I think a company like Sounds True, seriously, is a small, excellent experiment of trying just some of these things that are integrally inspired. And I think that's what's so interesting about it. So this is an experiment. Some of these things work, some don't. We tried this, that doesn't work, we tried this. But you can see this kind of company trying to push into a more integrally informed approach. And I think we're going to see more and more of that coming down the road. And that's what's so interesting about it. And people here, particularly that are doing consulting or management consulting, you are going to be asked how to do this in the future, just as a lot of management companies over the last 30 years, or consulting companies, made a lot of money teaching sensitivity training, multiculturalism, how to avoid sexual harassment, all of the healthy green stuff that got into the marketplace. The next big wave of management consulting is going to be how to be yellow, how to be turquoise, how to be integral. And so that's what we're looking for in the next 10 to 15 years. The demographics show an incoming tsunami wave of yellow and turquoise demand. And the company that starts producing those kinds of products is going to be taking care of that. That's what's so extraordinary. And that's actually very exciting for business right now.
Well, and to underscore that point, when you have a population that says, I want to invest my money in companies that are transforming the world, even if I get less of a return, if I know my money is sitting in that kind of company, that's where I want to put it, then you'll see public companies like Sounds True.
Multiple bottom lines is what they're investing in,
yeah,
not
they
just
want
oxygen.
that. They want that. That's
Yeah.
what they prefer.
Yeah.
And that's what we see with the whole socially responsible investment movement that's fueled it as far as it's come. Sure, and the way that we talk about it, it Sounds True, in our sort of own integralese, is we just talk about multiple bottom lines. And we say to anybody who's new to the company, hi, welcome to a business where we have multiple bottom lines. Our first bottom line is the quality of our programs. We want to make sure that we're actually putting something out, because this is what we're spending all of our time sweating around here doing, where when somebody pops that CD in their player, they get something from it that changes them and moves them up and opens them. That's the first thing. So that's our first. At the end of the year, we made 50 or 60 new products. Did our products actually transform people's lives? Then the second thing, and the second bottom line we'll talk about, is our experience working here, because this is our life. And I'll sit there and say, this is my life. You're going to see me a lot. And what that means is, are we evolving as people? Are we reaching our own personal goals by working here? Do we have the kind of lifestyle that we want? Dogs, flexibility, et cetera, things that are important to me. And so that's the second thing after the quality of our products is the quality of our life working here. And then the third thing has to do with our relationships with outside people, and are we communicating this Sounds True message in all of our relationships with our vendors and our external community. And then I won't even put the profit down as a bottom line. Instead, I'll say, and that's the oxygen that keeps this all going, and of course we need oxygen. So we pay attention to that and we track it, and we have this, you're going to hear a lot about it in meetings that you're going to be invited to, but that's the oxygen that keeps this whole thing going that's mission driven.
Right, okay.
Tami, you were asking a question, asking if other businesses are doing it, and the research shows that yes, business like yours are existing at the present time. Very often they are in small and medium firms, 0 to 50 people, privately held, and in the field of education, publishing, new age stuff, ecology, health, and so forth. So far we have an understanding of about 120 to 150 of those. And so it will be very interesting to study those business and have those principles. So the case do exist, but they are not in corporate America. They are not in big 500. They're just not, I have a question for you. Very often we're talking about 3 bottom lines: financial, social, and ecological. Did you play around, or did you think about a 4th bottom line, which will be to look at the spiritual development of those people? Spiritual accounting, what does that mean?
Yeah. Well, of course, at Sounds True, as I mentioned, that's, we didn't, the ecological one is not one that we talk about a lot, although it is something that's one of our aspirations. But one of the ones we do talk about a lot is our spiritual development, because we're a spiritual publishing company. And so the question of how do you measure that is an interesting question. And I don't know. What the language that I've come to at Sounds True is, did we create love at our business? Did we make love today at work? And what I found is that when I start talking about making love instead of spiritual development, first of all, half the people who are sleeping during the meeting wake up. And that's really good. And everybody knows what that means, and it's not abstract. This is not about religion. It's not about Tami's stupid minute of silence or whatever. This is about, like, am I grooving with the people I work with and with our customers on the phone? And when you make love, when you're editing a product, it's a completely different type of attention that you're giving it, or when you're designing the cover for something, or you're writing something. And so Sounds True is very interested in making love.